Hey, welcome to the 8th lesson of our Photon tutorial series on how to convert your games into online multiplayers. For this lesson, I'm going to show you how to set, synchronize, and display a username for our multiplayer Pong. To get started, we want to first add a new UI input field to our main menu. So I'm going to expand our Photon Quick Start prefab, then expand the canvas game object, and then going to expand the Quick Start menu. We can then right-click on the Quick Start menu, go down to UI, and select Input Field. I'm then going to reposition it and scale it up in our scene. We can then select the Placeholder object and Text object and turn Best Fit on. Now we need to add some code that will read in the value of this input field. So let's select our main menu controller object and open up the main menu script. Inside the script, we need to add the Photon.pun namespace up the top. We then need to create a new public function for our input field. So this is going to be public void. I'm going to call it username input. This function then needs a string parameter, which I'm going to call username. And then inside this function, all we have to do is type photon network.nickname equals username. Let's go ahead and save the script and then go back to Unity. Alright, so here I am back in Unity, but you might notice that something is a little different. Unfortunately, I had to update my Pong project to the latest version of Unity because with the version I was using, there actually was a bug where when trying to set the function for the onEndEdit event for our input field, there were actually no dynamic functions available. And it was actually just because of a bug found in versions 2019.2.5 and 6 F1. But now that I've updated to the latest version of Unity, you can select your new input field object. You'll then want to click the plus sign for the onEndEdit event. You can then drag the main menu controller into this event. We'll then use the drop-down menu to go to controller, and then we want to select the dynamic string username input function. You don't want to select the static parameter version because that won't work properly. So now that we have a way of reading in and saving the user's username, we want to display that username in the game scene. So let's go to the game scene. Now for displaying the usernames, I'm going to use the player key objects. So for player 1 keys, I'm going to set the alignment to left because I've changed the aspect ratio of my game view to match more like what we have in our standalone. I'm then going to select the player 2 keys object and set the alignment to the right. Now we need to add some code that will take the usernames and update these text objects with those values. To do this, let's open up our game controller script. Now inside the script, we need to create some new variables. The first variable is going to be a serialized field of type text, and it's going to be called my name. The second one is also going to be a serialized field of type text, and this one is going to be called their name. Now we'll initialize these variables in the inspector, but then we need to update them with the correct string value. The myName variable is very easy to update, and we'll do it within the start function. To set the string value, all we have to do is type myname.text equals photon network.nickname. But the their name variable is a little more difficult to set because we first have to wait for the other player to join the match and then send a message with their nickname. To make it a little more easier, we're going to do a little setup in this script, and the setup is going to be a setter function for the their name variable. So right after our start function, I'm going to add a public function of return type void, and I'm going to call it set their name. We then want to have a string parameter, and we'll call it name in. Then inside this function, we're just going to call the their name variable .text and set it equal to name in. Now to send the name from one player to the other, we're going to use what's called an RPC. And an RPC has to be sent from an object that has a Photon view component. But it can't be any old Photon view, it has to be one that's owned by the players. And there's only one of those per player, which is on the paddle prefab. So I'm going to save this script and then go over to our paddle controller script. Inside this script, you can see that we already have a Photon view variable. And so right after our start function, let's create a new RPC function. To create an RPC function, you want to add the tag PUN RPC. We can then type void, and we'll call our function send name, but I like to add RPC underscore out in front. We also want to have a string parameter for this function, and I'm going to call this parameter name sent. Now whatever we put inside this function will be executed on the other client's device. That means any variables we call aside from this parameter will have the values of that device. So inside this function, we want to get the instance of our game controller so that we can call the setThereName function. So we're going to type game controller .instance .setThereName. Now for the parameter of this function, we want to pass in the name sent value. Now all we have to do is call this RPC function, and we'll call it within our start function inside this if statement where we're checking to see if we own this object. To send an RPC function, you need to first access your Photon view variable. So I'm going to type mypv dot then RPC. The RPC function then takes a string for the method name. So that's going to be RPC underscore send name. So I'll copy that, but then put it inside quotes. The second parameter is then the RPC target, which is going to be RPC target dot others buffered. Others buffered just means that it saves this RPC so that if a player joins the game later, they'll still receive that information. We then need to pass in our parameter, which will be photon network dot nickname. Once we have all of that, we can then save this script. I'm also going to make sure that I save all of my scripts, and we'll go back to Unity. Inside Unity, all we have to do is set the myName variable and the thereName variable. The myName variable I'll set to player1 keys, which is this A and D in the bottom left corner, and I'll set the thereName to the player2 keys, which is the J and L in the top right corner. The last thing that I'm going to do is clear out the text value for these objects. And the reason why I'm doing that is because we no longer have two different sets of keys for the players to press. Instead, it's just A and D. Now we can save this scene and then load back into our main menu, and then we can build our project and test it out. Alright, here we go. I'm going to type my name, Nathan, into the standalone, click play. Here you can see that it says Nathan in the bottom left corner. Then in the editor, I'm going to type Nate and click play. Here you can see Nate is in the bottom left corner, which is correct for the editor, and Nathan is in the top right corner. If I then go back to the standalone, you can see that Nathan is in the bottom left corner and Nate is in the top right corner. And there you go. That's everything that we're going to cover in this lesson on how to synchronize a gamer tag across the network.